We've got a story today that pits one of the world's most ancient languages against its most advanced space agency. So, is this a hidden piece of history, or is it one of the biggest myths the internet has ever cooked up? Let's dive in.
So, let's get right to it. Here's the question that's been lighting up forums and videos for years. Did NASA, the agency that literally put people on the moon, secretly turn to an ancient Indian language to build its modern tech? It's a pretty wild idea, right?
And this is the line that really lit the fuse. This single, incredible claim suggests there's this secret link between ancient wisdom and the artificial intelligence that's shaping our world today. What a thought! It's honestly not hard to see why millions of people were totally captivated by it. So what's the big deal here? Well, if this story is actually true, it could completely flip the script on the history of modern science. But if it's not, well, then it's a perfect case study in how a digital lie gets started, how it spreads, and maybe, most importantly, who actually benefits from it.
This is the version of the story that just exploded online back in the early 2000s. It was everywhere, blogs, forwarded emails, you name it. And the idea was so simple, so powerful. NASA had somehow discovered that Sanskrit was the most perfect, the most logical language for talking to computers. All right, so to get to the bottom of this, we've got to do a little detective work. We're hunting for the one document that started this whole firestorm. And for that, we need to rewind the clock to 1985.
And here is the bizarre connection at the very heart of this myth. On one side, you've got Panini, a brilliant Sanskrit grammarian from way back, like 500 BC. On the other, you have a researcher at a NASA facility named Briggs in 1985. Briggs published a paper that tried to draw a line between these two completely separate worlds. And right here, this is probably where the whole misunderstanding began. Just look at that title, Knowledge Representation in Sanskrit and Artificial Intelligence. You can already see how somebody might just read that and jump to some pretty big conclusions, and it seems like a lot of people did just that. Now, to be fair, there is a tiny grain of truth in all this, which is what makes these myths so sticky. Briggs was genuinely fascinated by Panini's work. This ancient scholar created a grammar system with over 4,000 super precise, unambiguous rules. For a computer scientist, that kind of logical structure is beautiful, because modern programming languages also need strict, unbreakable rules. But here's the crucial pivot. The paper itself was really just a thought experiment. It was an academic deep dive into how an ancient grammar system handled logic. The story that grew up around it, though, that became a whole different beast. Okay, let's just break it down, side by side. The myth says NASA was funding some secret project to use Sanskrit to build AI. The reality? It was an unfunded paper by one guy exploring some cool ideas. It was never an official NASA project, and it for sure wasn't about building any new technology. And just so we're absolutely 100% clear, here's what Briggs never ever said in his paper. He never claimed NASA used Sanskrit. He never suggested it could replace coding languages like Lisp or Prolog. And he absolutely did not say that AI was built on it. These were all fabrications that got tacked on to his work later. So if it's that easy to debunk, why did this story not only survive but actually thrive? Why does it just refuse to go away? Well, the answer goes a lot deeper than a simple mix-up. It taps into something really powerful. Because once a myth like this gets out into the wild, it starts to mutate. It evolves. The story went from being about language to being about power. All of a sudden, new claims started popping up, that Sanskrit could control missiles, that ancient India had spaceships, and that modern science basically stole all this knowledge. The rumors got so widespread that in 2014, NASA itself had to step in. They put out this super clear, official statement, no secret project, no hidden code, nope. But here's the crazy part, it didn't really work. Even after a direct, flat-out denial from the source, the story just kept on trucking. So why? What on earth makes a myth like this so bulletproof? Well, once a story gets tangled up with identity and pride and mystery, it becomes more than just information. It becomes a part of who people are. And that brings us to the part that most people miss. The real lesson here isn't actually about Sanskrit or NASA at all. It's about how information works in the digital age. It's about why we choose to believe some stories over others, even when the facts say otherwise.
It turns out there's kind of a recipe for these things. First, you start with a selective truth. In this case, Sanskrit's amazing grammar. Then you connect that to a sense of identity and pride. Step 3, you offer an emotional reward. That feeling that, hey, our past was smarter than people think. And finally, you just let it spread on platforms that make money off of engagement.
Ultimately, this isn't just about one myth.
The real danger is what it represents, a growing willingness to reject verifiable science for stories that just feel better. And that's a path that really doesn't lead anywhere good.
So I'll just leave you with this to chew on. The real challenge isn't whether NASA studied Sanskrit. It's asking ourselves, how many other stories do we just accept without checking the source? And maybe more importantly, who's actually gaining from our beliefs?